and you don't believe in your customers, and you do things that are not right with them, you get canceled in 2 seconds.
But even your own partners in business, if you can't trust them, if that person is of integrity, honesty.
That's why the economy works. It's very transparent.
But there's a spiritual and moral dimension of that that's not reducible to just having money.
Hey guys, I'm Mike. And in this video, we're breaking down a heated moment from CNN's Abby Phillip panel featuring Kevinoleary, better known as Mr. Wonderful, alongside Dr. Cornel West and several other commentators. The discussion centers on Donald Trump's round of inflammatory rhetoric and how different voices interpret its meaning and impact. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.
President Trump ratchets up the rhetoric against a familiar foe.
I love this Ilhan Omar, whatever the hell her name is, with the little turban. I love her. She comes in, does nothing but bitch. She's always complaining. She comes from a country where, I mean, it's considered about the worst country in the world, right? And she comes to our country, and she's always complaining about the Constitution allows me to do this. We ought to get her the hell out. She should get the hell out. Throw her the hell out. She does nothing but complain.
And that's not all. He also revived an old remark that he made behind closed doors back in 2018 about shithole countries. Listen to this.
Why is it we only take people from shithole countries, right? Why can't we have some people from Norway, Sweden, just a few? Let us have a few. From Denmark, do you mind sending us a few people? Send us some nice people, do you mind? But we always take people from Somalia, places that are a disaster, right? Filthy, dirty, disgusting, ridden with crime. The only thing they're good at is going after ships.
Now, I just want to remind you that when those comments were reported by CNN, by the Washington Post, by other outlets, the White House, Trump denied it. Let me just play that denial.
Did you see what various senators in the room said about my comments? They were amazed. No, I'm not a racist. I am the least racist person you have ever interviewed. That I can tell you.
I remember that well.
You were there? Yeah, I remember.
And there were some senators that were at the White House that day and came back and reported what he had said.
Dick Durbin and others.
Yeah,
Chuck Schumer was in that meeting.
Yeah, and that's the difference between the first term and the second term. The first term, you would deny, no, I've never said that.
Right.
You'd say it, but you wouldn't admit to saying it. Now, it's just out in the open.
It is out in the open. I'm thinking about what you were saying in that last segment, because this feels like exactly what you were referencing.
No, it's true. And of course, 100 years ago, they were saying that about precious Irish brothers and sisters, Jewish brothers and sisters, Italian brothers and sisters, Irish, Polish, no. Samuel Beckett forever. But so that this is just a cycle. It's a human thing. You know, we're all human beings. We got to keep track of the organized hatred and weaponized greed and institutionalized indifference toward the weak and vulnerable. These moral and spiritual issues are perennial. Every generation has to come to terms with it. Thank God 100 years ago, voices that were moral and spiritual spoke out against it and called it for what it was. It's just hatred. This is revenge. This is xenophobia. But when you say that, you don't put them outside of the human race. They're still continuous with us. They're just the worst in us, because that same hatred and same greed is inside of us. It's in the civil war and the battlefield of our own souls every day. We have to fight it every day. And if we don't die every day, as biblical text says, we got to die. We got to fight that greed and hatred every day. If you don't, you're going to slide down a slippery slope.
Isn't the American project supposed to be about treating people as individuals, not as representatives of where they came from, about who their parents were, or whatever, but about who they are and what they can individually contribute to this country. However, what Trump is doing there is basically saying you are worthless if you come from a part of the world that he doesn't think has value. Is that really what we're doing in the United States of America?
That's not true in America. That's
no,
not true.
we in America, we do treat people as individuals and appreciate them as individuals. It's one of the greatest things about this country. On the other hand, and I am no fan of Ilhan Omar, and she is in a lot of deep doo-doo now because she is very tangled in this billion-dollar Somali Medicaid fraud scandal in Minneapolis, and she may be touched by this. And of course,
I haven't seen any evidence of her being connected to it, except for her being Somali.
Let me tell you why the check and balance. Let me tell you why
Abby, there is evidence.
This kind of rhetoric doesn't matter because the economy, the American economy, is based on entrepreneurship. I'm just one random investor. There are millions like me. We don't give a damn where you came from. We only ask, do you have executional excellence? I hire everybody, regardless of where their origination was or their race, religion, their skin color. I don't give a. It doesn't matter. If you can actually execute, you fit in an American company. And that exists today, regardless of who's the executive. I don't agree with those comments, but it's the economy that saves us all. The 200 years of success, the number one economy on earth, driven by every race and color and religion because of executional skills. Nothing else. That's it.
Yeah, I could not agree more.
What really stands out here is the contradiction baked into the rhetoric. On one hand, you hear complaints about accepting people from certain parts of the world paired with praise for countries like Sweden and Norway. But when you take a step back, those same countries, often cited as examples, are known for policies that emphasize social investment, strong safety nets, and broad public benefits. It raises an obvious question. If those nations are held up as models, why dismiss the policies that contribute to their outcomes? At the same time, focusing endlessly on the exact wording of Donald Trump's comments can start to feel like missing the bigger picture. His communication style has long relied on provocation. He understands how controversy works, how drawing sharp lines and targeting perceived outsiders energizes certain audiences. It's not accidental. It's a political instinct that thrives on confrontation and simplifies complex problems into easy targets. What's concerning is how this approach feeds into a broader trend, one where blame is shifted toward the other instead of examining structural issues. That mindset isn't new, as Cornel West points out, but it does feel more prominent right now, not just in the US, but globally. The idea that social or economic frustration can be explained by pointing at immigrants or outsiders is a recurring theme in periods of uncertainty. Lost in that framing is a more substantive conversation about leadership and policy. A diverse population in itself isn't the problem. In fact, many argue it has been a long-standing strength of the country. The deeper challenges tend to revolve around how power is exercised, how money influences decision-making, and whether institutions are actually serving the public interest. Some voices point toward reforms, things like reducing the role of money in politics or rethinking long-standing rules that shape elections and governance. Those debates are complicated and often contentious, but they highlight a key distinction. Economic anxiety and affordability concerns are real, yet they're often overshadowed by cultural flashpoints. Viewed through that lens, the rhetoric isn't really about economics at all. It's about identity, fear, and political strategy. And while it may dominate headlines, it doesn't necessarily bring the conversation any closer to addressing the underlying economic pressures many Americans are actually feeling day to day.
In this moment, what is happening, the government policy right now, is that if you are from a list of countries, I think right now it's 19, but they want to expand it to 30, you're going in, you've gone through the whole immigration process. You're going in to take your oath of allegiance to the United States and become a citizen. And they are pulling you out of line. The executive director of an immigration organization says, we have 15 clients whose oath ceremonies have been canceled. They were fully vetted and approved. We have others whose interviews have been canceled. They're all from those 19 countries. How is that not punishing people for things that they themselves did not do, but that other people from who happen to be from the same country might have done.
And this is all political. It's a distraction. I'll go back to your comment about the economy. People that were watching that rally, even the people standing behind, at the end of the day, all they care about is the economy. Can they pay their bills right now? Can they afford the squeeze that they are feeling every single day? Donald Trump doesn't like to tackle things that are difficult. Healthcare, inflation, tariffs, dealing with foreign countries. These are tough issues, policy issues. So what does he do? He makes fun of people. He goes after people, particularly women, and particularly women of color, which is just so offensive on so many levels that he goes after female journalists. He goes after members of Congress. You see him doing it with Nancy Mace, with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I'm naming Republicans right now. It's a perpetual problem and pattern that he has, and it's a distraction from the economy, which he is failing on.
I do believe that people coming in from certain countries that have posed terrorist risks to us in the past should be more adequately vetted. And if listing the countries and saying people coming in from these countries must be more thoroughly researched, more thoroughly verified before they're admitted to this country, I have no problem with that, because the president is also responsible for the national security of this country.
But the thing is, though, you see, that even all the gold in the world, no matter how many golden calves you have, you can't have an economy unless you're also rich in the things money can't buy. Integrity, honesty. You can't even have a contract if you're dealing with gangsters. You can't even have a relationship if you're dealing with thugs. You can't have a capitalist economy without some notion of contract with people that you engage in, you have some trust in. That's the kind of stuff money can't buy.
Businesses are judged by those rules every day.
That's right, rule of law.
They're judged by, if you are an immoral issuer and you don't believe in your customers and you do things that are not right with them, you get canceled in 2 seconds.
But even your own partners in business, if you can't trust them, if not persons of integrity, honesty.
That's why the economy works. It's very transparent.
But there's a spiritual and moral dimension of that that's not reducible to just having money.
That's why you're at the table.
You're telling me you can live without money?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying
having a problem with that one.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that no economy can survive without some notion of trust and integrity.
I don't think you would disagree with that, right,
I'm sorry,
Kevin?
but this economy's really surviving. It's the number one economy on earth.
Well, you got 200 years. You got 20% of the people in poverty, too.
Yeah, Dr. West really zings it to Kevin O'Leary there. For whom? Right? They love to say this is the biggest economy on earth, but then they also say out of the other sides of the mouth, well, there's not enough money. We can't fix healthcare because there's not enough money. You have to cut food stamps because there's not enough money. Everything's going bankrupt. Which is it?
You would disagree with what he's saying fundamentally, which is that everything in this country is based on trust. Right?
Yeah.
Business is based on trust. That's what he's saying.
But anytime, listen, I love the narrative you're going with, but I keep reminding people it's a very simple metric, extremely measurable, cannot be denied. 52 cents of every dollar on earth every day comes to America for only one reason. People want to invest in this economy. With all of its faults, all of its problems, it is the number one destination for money from everywhere. So if they had concerns about trust, they'd put it in North Korea or maybe Cuba. How about Venezuela? I love that place. So the whole point is there's a reason you can measure this. You can debate it. I love that. But the numbers don't lie. Number uno, every year for 220 years.
One quick thing on the immigration piece. Tonight, CNN called the Miami mayor's race for Eileen Higgins. She's a Democrat, the first Democrat in 30 years. Republicans hemorrhaging Cuban support because Cuba, alongside Haiti, alongside Somalia, are on that list. And it's not just that, but also they're being targeted. Some of them say because of their skin color. Politically, this feels like a deepening problem for Republicans as they go into the midterms.
Oh, I think it is. I mean, if you look at the off-year elections leading up, a couple of special elections here, it's just one hit after another against Republicans and for the Democrats. So I think it's going to be difficult. If you lose Cuban Americans, and I'm not suggesting that a majority of Cuban Americans, that's a group that has traditionally supported Republicans, and they still will. But any diminishment of that support just really adds to Democrats' favor.
That is really significant. Holding the House.
So I think this is an interesting conversation. You know, I think the idea of Kevin O'Leary talking about the sheer size and scope of the U.S. economy as a kind of an all justifying number is pretty cynical. And I really enjoyed Cornel West raising the point. So there's just no moral aspect to Kevin O'Leary lumps in a kind of like, with all of its problems and all of its faults, is still the biggest, and therefore forget about it. Tell that to the West Virginia citizens and the Pennsylvania citizens living in coal, mining areas or natural gas areas where their water's been poisoned. Tell that to anybody dealing with a healthcare company, right? I mean, where's the governance in all this? And I just want to jump back. We sort of sailed past it, but I just want to jump back to an earlier clip.
This is all political. It's a distraction. I'll go back to your comment about the economy. People that were watching that rally, even the people standing behind, at the end of the day, all they care about is the economy. Can they pay their bills right now? Can they afford the squeeze that they are feeling every single day? Donald Trump doesn't like to tackle things that are difficult. Healthcare, inflation, tariffs, dealing with foreign countries. These are tough issues, policy issues. So what does he do? He makes fun of people. He goes after people, particularly women, and particularly women of color, which is just so offensive on so many levels that he goes after female journalists. He goes after members of Congress. You see him doing it with Nancy Mace, with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I'm naming Republicans right now. It's a perpetual problem and pattern that he has, and it's a distraction from the economy, which he is failing on.
What Lori Watkins highlights here really gets to the core of the pattern. When conversations turn to affordability and everyday economic pressure, the initial response is often dismissal, the idea that everything is fine and people are imagining the problem. But when that argument doesn't resonate with lived experience, the strategy shifts. Attention gets redirected away from policy and toward division. That redirection is familiar. Instead of engaging with rising costs, healthcare, or wages, the focus moves to cultural conflict and blame. It simplifies complex economic challenges into a narrative where frustration is pointed outward, often toward specific groups, rather than inward toward leadership or structural issues. As Watkins suggests, it's a tactic that reliably changes the subject. Another part of this critique centers on accountability. Leadership comes with responsibility, especially at the highest level, and yet moments that demand ownership are often met with deflection. Decisions are minimized, distance is created, and responsibility is blurred. Over time, that erodes trust, not because of any single controversy, but because the pattern becomes predictable. There's also a striking contrast in how immigration is discussed. On one hand, harsh language is used about certain countries or groups. On the other, pathways tied to wealth and investment are openly promoted. That contrast fuels the perception that the issue isn't simply about borders or security, but about who is seen as valuable and under what conditions. Taken together, Watkins' point is that these moments of controversy function less as policy debates and more as distractions. They pull focus away from economic performance and everyday realities that affect people across the political spectrum. Whether you agree with her framing or not, it raises an important question. Are these debates moving the country closer to solutions, or simply keeping attention locked on the noise? I'm curious how you see it. Feel free to share your thoughts.